1-866-95 Patriot. Let's see. Okay, Joe, take a crack at it. You're from New Jersey.
Yeah. Hey, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Doing fine. Hey, I'm trying to track with your argument here that, the Constitution over everything, and, it has to be taken literally and followed consistently or not at all. So are you saying that if the Constitution says that we can only have a Navy, that there's no room for an Army and an Air Force and Marines?
Okay, it says in the Constitution an Army and the Navy. The Marine Corps, if you look at the logo, is the Department of the Navy. The Air Force was started as the Army Air Corps. If you would like to return the Air Force to the command of the Army and reinstitute the Department of the Navy, I think the Marine Corps broke away at some point. I don't claim to know this. But if you want the Marine Corps returned under the Navy and the Air Force returned under the Army, fine.
So you're saying that...
That's not what I'm saying. You heard me. I'm not... So you're saying. I said it. You heard me.
Okay.
There's no so if you're saying...
You sound like you're really upset and angry. I don't understand why
okay.
I'm talking about your argument. Here's another question for you.
No, hold on a second. That's a cheap little game that liberal Democrats like you play. You sound angry. I'm not angry. There's no anger here. The fact that I have a raspy voice and I make my statements clear and concise does not make me angry, sir.
It just comes across and...
Well, I don't care how it comes across. Make a point and let's get on with it.
Okay. The Supreme Court is the final court of judgment, and they've ruled that abortions are legal under their ruling. So,
okay, hold on a second, sir. Let's go to Article 3. Where do they have the power to create that law?
Well, whether they did appropriately or not, you said that once they make their ruling...
Yes, that's what we're living. That is the reality that we're living with, inappropriate or appropriate. That's the real world. I don't live in fantasy land.
But you're saying that there's a constitutional crisis anytime the Supreme Court or the Constitution weighs one way, and that the conduct...
If it's out of their jurisdiction. If it is out of their jurisdiction, if the effect of the court case is to, in effect, create law, then the law is being legislated from the bench, not from the houses of the legislature.
But when it's done at the level of the Supreme Court, it's the law of the land, is it not?
It has the effect of the law of the land. It doesn't mean it's legitimate according to the scope of the Supreme Court under Article 3.
But people who have a different point of view than you would say that it is legitimate.
Okay. All I would ask is to show me that under Article 3.
Okay. Do you think that...
No, that's where you tell me under Article 3 where that power resides.
Those who argued the case to the Supreme Court...
No, I'm asking you under Article 3 where the Supreme Court gets that power to begin with.
A good question, and one I could take up with you with some preparation.
Well, what you could say is that judicial review started with Marbury versus Madison, and the Supreme Court's been deciding its own powers ever since.
But to the same extent that some people are arguing that Obamacare, and by the way, I don't like the term, but anyway, creates a constitutional crisis because it's going against the law of the land. Well, aren't efforts to take funds away from centers that provide safe abortions for women, isn't that also creating a constitutional crisis since rights to abortion are the law of the land, whether you agree or disagree with the ruling or the basis for the ruling?
That's not true, sir. That would mean the government owes me a free gun since I have the right to keep and bear arms.
Who's talking about the value of the service? We're saying...
You said that taking funds away, the assumption is if you have the right to abortion, it should be paid for by someone else, namely the government. You have the right to abortion, thus that right is to be affected by covering the cost of exercising the right. If that is the case, I want my free gun.
Well, I think that there's an argument against that from the standpoint of... now that we know that it's legal, it's acceptable under the law, now you're saying to people who unfortunately, in all cases, have to avail themselves of that service, may have to compromise where they go if they don't have money.
So where's my free gun? If I don't have the money to exercise my Second Amendment rights, does the government owe me a free gun?
Maybe you ought to take that up if that's something that you believe is consistent.
Maybe you ought to read the Constitution. Thank you for the call.